Day 714, Saturday, August 9th. Nehemiah 1. Nehemiah 1:1-11. NKJV. The words of Nehemiah the son of Hakaliah. It came to pass in the month of Chislev, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan the citadel, that Hanani one of my brethren came with men from Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews who had escaped, who had survived the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said to me, The survivors who are left from the captivity in the province are there in great distress and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem is also broken down, and its gates are burned with fire. So it was, when I heard these words, that I sat down and wept, and mourned for many days. I was fasting and praying before the God of heaven. And I said, I pray, Lord God of heaven, O great and awesome God, you who keep your covenant and mercy with those who love you and observe your commandments, please let your ear be attentive and your eyes open, that you may hear the prayer of your servant which I pray before you now day and night, for the children of Israel your servants, and confess the sins of the children of Israel, which we have sinned against you. Both my father's house and I have sinned. We have acted very corruptly against you, and have not kept the commandments, the statutes, nor the ordinances which you commanded your servant Moses. Remember, I pray, the word that you commanded your servant Moses, saying, If you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me, and keep my commandments and do them, though some of you were cast out to the farthest part of the heavens, yet I will gather them from there, and bring them to the place which I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. Now these are your servants and your people, whom you have redeemed by your great power and by your strong hand. O Lord, I pray, please let your ear be attentive to the prayer of your servant, and to the prayer of your servants who desire to fear your name, and let your servant prosper this day, I pray, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man, for I was the king's cupbearer. Daily Deep Dive. A UCG reading plan states, as explained in the Beyond Today Bible Commentary Introductory Comments on Ezra and Nehemiah, the book of Nehemiah is evidently a continuation of the book of Ezra. While Ezra is traditionally reckoned as the compiler of both sections, several parts of the section now referred to as Nehemiah were evidently written by Nehemiah himself. This is the case with Nehemiah 1:1-7:5. As chapter 1 opens, we are immediately introduced to Nehemiah verse 1, whose name means comfort of Yahweh the Eternal. Yahweh comforts, or Yahweh is consolation. The time is the month Kislev, corresponding to November-December in the 20th year, referring to the 20th year of Persian Emperor Artaxerxes c. 1. Apparently Artaxerxes Ephraim Longinus, the same king who had earlier sent Ezra, see Ezra 7:1, but later ordered the reconstruction of Jerusalem's walls, halted c. 421-23. This would date Nehemiah 1 to the end of 445 BC. More than 12 years after the return of Ezra to Judea in 457, the place, according to Nehemiah 1:1, is Shushan, also known as Susa, one of the capitals of the Persian Empire, the one in which the book of Esther was set. This city was around 150 miles north of the Persian Gulf in what is today Iran. Nehemiah is an important person. Like Joseph, Daniel, and Esther before him, Nehemiah appears to have been placed by God in a strategic position in a foreign imperial government to accomplish God's will on the world scene. He refers to himself at the end of chapter 1 as the king's cupbearer, verse 11. This was an honored position of trust. Consider that a cupbearer was to ensure against the poisoning of a ruler. But there was much more to the job than that. The apocryphal book of Tobit, also from the Persian period, refers to a certain Ahikar as chief cupbearer, keeper of the signet, and in charge of administration of the accounts under King Sennacherib of Assyria, 122, NRSV. As the expositor's Bible commentary notes on verse 11, varied sources suggest something about Nehemiah as a royal cupbearer. 1. He would have been well trained in court etiquette, cf. Dan 1:4-5. 2. He was probably a handsome individual, cf. Dan 1:4-13-15, Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews XTs, 230-30 civis. 1:3. He would certainly know how to select the wines to set before the king. A proverb in the Babylonian Talmud Baba Kama 92 billion states, the wine belongs to the master but credit for it is due to his cupbearer. 4. He would have to be a convivial companion, willing to lend an ear at all times. 5. He would have great influence as one with the closest access to the king, able to determine who is able to see his master. 6. Above all, Nehemiah had to be one who enjoyed the unreserved confidence of the king. The great need for trustworthy court attendance is underscored by the intrigues endemic to the Achaemenid court. Xerxes, father of Artaxerxes I, was killed in his own bedchamber by Artabanus, a courtier. In verse 2 of chapter 1, we see that Nehemiah's brother has just returned from a visit to Jerusalem. We will see him mentioned again in Nehemiah 7:2 as receiving charge from Nehemiah over Jerusalem. The report of Hanani and his traveling companions is not good. The Jews of Judea are suffering disgrace and persecution. The city wall is broken down and the gates of the city have been burned. While this could conceivably have referred to the Babylonian destruction of 142 years prior, it seems more likely to refer to recent devastation. Most scholars understand it to refer to the Samaritan military action to stop the rebuilding of Jerusalem's city wall, as ordered by Artaxerxes. Compare Ezra 4:21-23. As explained in the comments on our previous reading, this probably occurred in conjunction with the rebellion of the satrap Megabyzus in 449 BC. About 2 years later, Megabyzus reasserted his loyalty to Artaxerxes' Eugene Merrill Kingdom of Priests p. 508. But the damage in Jerusalem was done. It was now 5 years after the revolt and just 3 years after the reaffirmation of Persian rule. Evidently things had not improved for the Jews of Judea in this short period. Nehemiah is sorely grieved, and immediately commences on a period of fasting and prayer, confessing the people's sin. In doing so, he is evidently speaking generally of the Israelites' national proclivity to sin, rather than some specific sin of the Judean Jews, as he includes his own sins in the confession. He well understands that the people's long history of immorality is the reason they have been reduced to being such a weakened people. Yet Nehemiah reminds God of his promises to regather his people, and asks particularly that God will grant him favor with the king, Nehemiah 1:4-11. Evidently to make a case for the rebuilding of Jerusalem, as we will see in chapter 2. End.